Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. You've heard of the Middle Ages, right? Castles, crusades, plagues, and pottage. But what if I told you there was a moment in history, real documented, and absolutely baffling, where entire villages broke into uncontrollable dancing, not joyful celebrations, not merry jigs at the harvest festival. No. This was a terrifying, bone-snapping, soul-breaking frenzy, dancing until the body gave out, until the mind cracked, until the breath simply stopped. This wasn't folklore. It happened, repeatedly, across Europe, from Strasbourg to Aachen, from the Rhine Valley to the streets of medieval towns too small to even remember now. And what caused it? That's where things get weird. Maybe it was disease. Maybe it was mass hysteria. Or maybe just maybe it was something far stranger. But we'll get to that. First, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this kind of deep, dark, and slightly offbeat history. And let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see the strange little constellation of time zones this channel brings together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum in the background, and let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey when medieval peasants danced to death. This story isn't just about disease or superstition, it's about the lives of the people who experienced it. The peasants who woke up one morning, stretched their arms, maybe chewed on a hunk of rye bread, and then began to dance. Slowly at first, then wildly, uncontrollably. Not with joy, but as if possessed. They danced in circles until their feet bled, until bones cracked beneath them. Some wept. Some begged for it to stop. Some foamed at the mouth and cried out to saints. And some simply collapsed and never got up again. What did this mean to the people of the time? How did they make sense of it in a world ruled by demons, relics, and divine punishment? Why did it happen again and again and again? And what was it really like, not for the scholars or the church officials, but for the ordinary people trapped in this horrifying, sweaty, foot-thudding nightmare? Tonight you're going to find out. You're not a knight. You're not a bishop. You're not even a town doctor with a very suspicious bottle of herbs and a theory about lunar tides. Tonight, you're just you. Dropped into the heart of the Middle Ages in the year 1518, in a city where something very strange is about to begin. Let's start at the moment you wake up. You wake up gasping, not from a nightmare, but because the air you just inhaled feels like someone exhaled it first. Thick, sour, and damp like fermented onions trapped in an old blanket. You blink, trying to focus. Everything is dark. Not nighttime dark. Pre-electricity dark. The kind of darkness that has shape and smell and presence. You try to sit up, but your body protests. Your back aches. Your neck is stiff. Your feet are cold. Congratulations. You've just woken up in Strasbourg in the year 1518. And no, the smell does not improve. You're lying on a straw mattress, if you can call it that. It's not a bed. It's a sack half bursting with musty hay, crushed Russia's tears, and an ecosystem of tiny creatures you can hear, but will never want to see. The linen sheet draped over you is coarse and vaguely wet, not from water, but from years of trapped breath and medieval mildew. A rat skitters across the floorboards. You hear it before you see it. Scratching, scrambling, bold. This is his home too. The light in the room isn't coming from a lamp. There's no switch to flip. Instead, it's a dusty shaft of gray dawn filtering through a warped wooden shutter with a hole punched into it. The light doesn't warm the room. It just confirms how utterly depressing it is. You're in a shared sleeping space, probably with a family you don't know. The bed beside you holds two other people. You can hear them breathing. One wheezes slightly, the other mumbles in their sleep. There's no privacy, no door to your little corner, just a low wooden beam overhead that you'll almost certainly smack your head on later. The walls are made of plaster and wood cracked and uneven stained from years of smoke and old candle soot. There's no decoration unless you count the collection of cobwebs in the corner, currently doing their best to support the weight of a very ambitious spider. The floor is dirt, not unfinished wood dirt. Actual dirt. Packed earth worn smooth by decades of footsteps, spilled broth, and the occasional chamber pot accident. Which brings us to the next joy, the smell. A mix of sweat, smoke, mold, and a very clear indication that someone has not emptied their night pot. You can smell it. It's near your head. You try not to think about it, but it's there waiting like a cruel medieval alarm clock. Outside bells ring, not melodic bells, harsh metallic clangs. They echo through the cold morning air, reminding everyone that it's time to get up even if no one wants to. You hear chickens squabbling, the heavy thud of someone dumping water into a trough, and a distant shout about turnips. Someone nearby is already coughing deep, chesty, and rhythmic. A reminder that tuberculosis never sleeps. You shift your legs and wince. Your feet are bare. The straw beneath them is cold and damp, and itchy, very itchy. You suspect fleas. You're right. You try to stand. The first thing you notice is how uneven the floor is. Every step is a gamble. The second thing you notice is the ceiling. It's low, dangerously low. As you stretch, your hand brushes something. Cobweb, thick, sticky, and now it's on your face. Perfect. There's no mirror, no toothbrush, no concept of a morning routine as you understand it. Just the daily miserable ritual of trying to prepare your body for another day it doesn't want to experience. And you're not even aware yet of what's about to happen in this city, of the terrifying dance that will soon claim your neighbors. But already something is different. The streets outside feel tense, uneasy. You don't know it yet, but you're waking up in the middle of a crisis. One that has no name, no explanation, and no mercy. Soon you'll hear the sound of feet, dozens of them beating a rhythm into the cobblestones. You'll hear weeping, laughing, screaming, and a sound you will never forget, the sound of someone dancing as if their life depends on it. Until it doesn't. For now, though, all you know is this: you're in a wooden shack that smells like boiled cabbage and medieval disappointment. Your feet itch, your breath is visible in the morning chill, and someone just stepped over you to get to the door. They don't apologize. They grunt. That's the standard greeting. You shuffle toward the small basin in the corner where a little water sits from the night before. It's cold. It smells metallic. But it's all you've got. You splash it on your face. It doesn't help. The dirt smears more than it removes. You stare at the door. Beyond it lies your day. A day filled with hard labor, hunger, cold, and something stranger than anything you've ever imagined. Something's coming, and it wears the sound of dancing feet. You shuffle toward the wooden door, not with purpose, but with resignation. You don't go anywhere in this world, you endure your way through it. The latch creaks like a groaning tooth, and when you open it, you're met with the familiar sting of cold morning air, thick with chimney smoke, pig breath, and the ever-present stench of life lived far too close to its own waste. Let's begin with hygiene, though. Calling it that feels generous. There is no bathroom, no soap dispenser, no running water, no glossy toothpaste with micro-mint freshness. Your version of a sink is a wooden bucket half filled with gray water from yesterday. It's been sitting out all night absorbing every smell in the air, like a sponge with abandonment issues. You dunk your hands in flinch at the cold and rub the grime off your face with a rough cloth that in a better world might have been a sock. To brush your teeth, you chew a stick. No, really. A chewed willow twig frayed at the end. It tastes like old bark and bitterness. There's no mint, no fluoride. You scrape at your teeth hoping to reduce the visible yellow layer, but you're mostly just spreading yesterday's turnip stew around your gums. You spit brown, thick, and vaguely clumpy. And then because there's no sink, you just sort of let it dribble down a stone or into the weeds beside the trough. Welcome to your oral care routine. It's not effective, but it's traditional. You glance toward the latrine pit. It's not private. Just a hole in the ground, behind a half-hearted wooden screen, slightly crooked and always occupied. There's already a line. You debate whether it's worth the wait, or if you should just use the communal chamber pot again and hope someone else dumps it. You're already stepping over puddles in the street mud, you think, but with medieval infrastructure, assumptions are dangerous. Once that's done, it's time for breakfast. Or more precisely, what passes for breakfast. You head back indoors where a small hearth crackles in the corner. If you're lucky, someone has stirred the embers into life. If not, you'll wait until the room stops steaming with breath. Someone has already thrown a lump of barley porridge into a pot. It's yesterday's batch, or maybe the day before's. It's been stirred so often and so carelessly that it's formed layers. The top layer is lukewarm, the middle is gluey, and the bottom is scorched black like the rest of your optimism. You're handed a wooden bowl cracked at the rim, and a spoon that may once have been flat. You eat slowly, not because you're savoring, but because eating too fast causes regrets. The porridge tastes of ash oat dust and something vaguely metallic. You don't ask what it is, you just chew. There's no meat, there's no cheese, there's no sugar. Sugar is a luxury, a miracle, a myth. The richest people in town haven't tasted it. You dream of it. Like others dream of warmth or safety. Your breakfast drink, ale. Always ale. Because the water could kill you faster than starvation. It's low in alcohol, barely fermented, and slightly sour. But it's safer than the well and more satisfying than chewing dry grain. Even the children drink it. Nobody talks about that. It's just how things are. Sometimes if you're blessed, someone tosses in a boiled onion or a shriveled apple quarter. That counts as flavoring. That counts as joy. And yet, as you chew this gray mass and sip your half-sour beer, you hear something else. Feet. Outside. Not walking. Not running. Dancing. You pause spoon halfway to your mouth. You strain to listen. Thud. Shuffle. Thud thud. A staggered rhythm. No music, no laughter. Just the sound of feet moving with stubborn, unnatural energy. Like someone is being forced to dance by invisible strings. You shake your head and keep eating. People dance. Sometimes. There are festivals, saint days, feasts, weddings, but not at this hour. Not before breakfast. Not in silence. Your stomach churns not from fear, from the porridge. Always from the porridge. You finish your bowl, wipe your mouth with the back of your sleeve, and set the spoon down beside a pile of similar utensils, all drying in last night's soot. Someone hands you a chunk of stale rye bread. It's hard enough to knock out a goose. You gnaw at it anyway. It's better than nothing. And in this world, better than nothing is the baseline for celebration. Someone across the room is brushing their hair more accurately, scraping it with a carved comb. Lice spill out. They don't flinch. Just flick them into the corner. You do the same later. Lice aren't a problem. They're roommates. You reach for your outer tunic. It's scratchy, heavy, and still damp from yesterday's snowmelt. It smells like sheep and regret. You pull it on anyway, fingers stiff from the cold. You pull your shoes' leather slip-ons more closely, related to flappy slippers than actual footwear over your socks, which are less sock and more wool tube with holes. You're ready. You're clean by medieval standards. You've eaten by medieval standards. And soon you'll step into the street and discover that this day is not like the others. Because today your neighbor is dancing, and they cannot stop. You're dressed now, if you can call it that. Not in anything fashionable or flattering. Not in anything you'd ever choose by preference. But in layers of wool linen and frustration. Your under tunic scratches your skin like it's holding a grudge. It's not lined. It's not soft. It's just fabric woven roughly dyed with whatever was lying around and probably passed down through 3 dead cousins before it reached you. Over that, your outer garment. It's long, shapeless, and smells faintly of wet sheep. The color brown. Everything is brown. Dirt brown, mud brown, slightly green from old urine brown. No buttons. Just ties, belts, knots. And each one takes forever with your cold, stiff fingers. You pull them tight, not for fashion, but to keep your tunic from becoming an open flap of wind-caught misery. Your cloak is thick but heavy. It's made of wool, but not the nice kind. It soaks up rain like a sponge and holds on to the chill long after the sky clears. When it's dry, it's stiff. When it's wet, it's heavier than your neighbor's dead ox. You throw it over your shoulders anyway. You have no choice. And then there's your hat. It's not decorative. It's not cute. It's essential. Made from felted scraps or coarse wool, it's less cozy headwear and more medieval head bucket. You pull it low to cover your ears, which helps slightly. But the wind finds its way in anyway, slipping under your clothes like a nosy ghost. No gloves, of course. Your hands stay raw and red, your knuckles cracked from cold, your nails permanently rimmed with the dark grit of survival. And your shoes. Let's talk about your shoes. They're made of leather, or what used to be leather. More accurately, they're the suggestion of shoes. Flat, unlined, and slick from years of trudging through dung-stained alleys and frost-bitten fields. The soles are thin enough to feel every pebble, every sharp edge, every regret. They're stitched by hand, probably your own with twine or sinew, and every step is a negotiation between pain and forward motion. Now step outside. Leave the shelter of your one-room hut. Take a look at where you live. It's not a home. It's a survival box. A structure made not to be admired, but to barely keep the wind out. The walls are made of wattle and daub that is woven sticks smeared with mud straw and animal dung. Yes, dung. It's a wonderful insulator. It's also the reason your house smells like a cow's disappointed sigh. Your roof is thatched, and while it keeps out some of the rain, it also lets in the rest of nature. Mice live up there. Birds, too. You once had a weasel drop in on a Tuesday. It stared at you during dinner. You stared back. That was the most interaction you had that week. No windows, just shutters. Wooden boards that creak when opened and never fully close. They let in light, yes, but also cold smoke and gossip. Sound carries easily. Your neighbor's child cries, and it feels like they're in the room with you. Probably because they are. Half the village is related and practically sleeps in your bed anyway. Your floor dirt. Stamped down earth covered in rushes or straw if you're lucky. which you aren't. So it's just cold soil, packed hard by years of shuffling feet, dropped crumbs, spilled broth, and the occasional unfortunate chicken accident. It floods when it rains, freezes when it snows, and always, always smells faintly like wet dog and medieval feet. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof and a hearth in the center of the room. The fire is smoky. The room is smoky. Your eyes burn constantly. The smoke stains the ceiling black and clings to your clothes like a medieval cologne. And this isn't just your house. It's everyone's house. You, your spouse, your children, the grandmother who no longer speaks but still glares. Maybe a cousin, maybe a boarder. You sleep together, eat together, scratch together. Privacy. It's a myth. You change clothes in front of your mother-in-law. She comments. You ignore her. Your possessions are few. A pot, a wooden spoon, a single chest filled with folded linen, a cracked plate and 2 bent iron nails you're saving just in case. A stool that's more wobble than wood. A table if you're fortunate, though one leg may have been replaced with a brick. This is your shelter. It's not cozy. It's not clean. But it's yours. Outside you look around. Other houses lean like they've given up. Roofs sag. Doors hang off hinges. Walls bulge. Everything is crooked, patched, and stained. The streets are narrow, muddy, and strewn with waste. Drainage is theoretical, and someone is dumping the contents of a chamber pot into the alley. The air smells of firewood, wet hay, rotting vegetables, and desperation. And in the distance, you hear it again. That strange rhythmic sound. A group of people, not walking, not marching, dancing. You see them now down the road. 3, maybe 4 villagers, their arms flailing, their feet pounding. Not to music, not to joy, just movement. Their eyes are wide, their mouths are slack, their legs kick like puppets at war with themselves. No one is smiling, and yet they keep dancing. You watch them chilled not just by the wind, but by something older, something deeper. You tug your cloak tighter and step out into the road. Whatever this is, it's spreading. And your house, your clothes, your boots made of dying leather, they won't protect you from what's coming. Because you can already feel it now, in the twitch of your calf. Your feet hit the mud with a dull thud, the kind of sound that promises 12 more hours of damp discomfort. The street isn't a road so much as a trench of churned earth and manure. And like everything else in your world, it doesn't care that you didn't sleep well, or that your boots are already soaked, or that something unnatural is happening just a few houses down. The dance is still there, ongoing. You try not to look. You try not to listen to the slap, slap, stumble of the woman twirling, with tears running down her face. But the sound stays with you, like thunder in the background of a storm you haven't yet reached. It's time to work. There's no clock to punch in, no lunch break scheduled, no pension plan. You work because you must, and when you don't, someone notices. The bailiff, the reeve, the landowner's steward who never sets foot in the village but whose taxes still reach you like a hand through the fog. You're a peasant. You don't own your land, you work it. For a lord whose name you might know but whose face you've never seen. The fields are your office and the hours are until you collapse. This morning you're hauling turnips, or maybe beets. You can't tell anymore. They all feel like rocks. You walk with a crude wooden yoke across your shoulders, 2 sloshing buckets hanging from each end. Your muscles scream with every step. Your fingers have already gone numb. Your back has already filed a formal complaint. Still, you walk. You reach the fields. They stretch out in front of you like a promise no one ever meant to keep. Rows of earth, half-frozen, lumpy, unforgiving. Your job today is simple: dig, lift, repeat, with a tool that's less shovel and more sharpened stick with aspirations. You bend over and feel your spine issue a threat. You ignore it. You always do. The soil fights you. It clings to the roots. It resists the blade. It pretends it doesn't want to feed you. Because it doesn't. The land isn't generous. It's transactional. You give it your body, your time, your energy, and in return, it gives you just enough to not die. You're not alone, of course. Others are out here too. Men, women, children. Bent like reeds, scattered like crows, shivering in their patched tunics and wool hats. No one speaks. Not because they don't want to, but because their jaws are clenched against the cold. Someone nearby coughs. It's not a healthy cough. It's wet and deep and long. You all hear it. No one says anything. What's there to say? The work continues. Sometimes you're assigned other tasks. Carrying firewood from the forest. Splitting logs until your fingers blister. Herding sheep across hills too steep to climb safely. Digging trenches. Filling wagons. Lifting crates. But it's all the same, really. It's labor. Not exercise. Not purpose. Just the repetitive act of survival in a world where rest is for the dead. And even they don't get much peace. The churchyard is full. People still die. But they keep coming back, dug up, moved, shifted to make room. You passed a bone sticking out of the dirt once. You stepped over it. Everyone does. But there's a hierarchy even in misery. Some jobs are worse than others. The tanner's apprentice covered in the stink of rotting hides and lime. The night soil man carries buckets of human waste through town, dumps them in the woods, and gets paid in silence and side glances. You've worked the mill once, hauling sacks of barley up crooked stairs, while the wheel groaned below you like some mechanical beast. The miller shouted. The air was thick with dust and flour and shouting. You coughed blood that night. You didn't go back. Today, though, it's the fields. Midday comes. Not that you eat lunch. There's no picnic. Just a cold hunk of bread, rock hard and riddled with flour mites. You chew it like punishment. Wash it down with yesterday's ale gone flat and bitter. You sit on a rock spine, aching knees, clicking feet, steaming in your own sweat. And then once again you hear it. Dancing. You look up. Across the field. Past the barn. Near the well. Another one. A boy this time. Maybe 15. Spinning, twirling, skipping. His face is red. His mouth is open, but no words come out. Just gasps. His limbs jerk like puppet strings pulled by a nervous hand. His mother screams. His father tries to hold him. But the boy moves like fire, wild and unstoppable. You see the priest in the distance crossing himself, mumbling Latin, holding a relic high in the air, like it's going to do something. The boy dances on, and the work doesn't stop. Because it can't. You look away. Dig another root. Rub your hands. Swallow the bile in your throat. Back to work. Because in this world, even in the face of madness, there's always more work. Someone shouts your name. A basket needs lifting. A fence needs patching. The sheep are out again. Someone stole a chicken. Someone else collapsed. No one's talking about the dance. Not directly. But it's there in every glance, every muttered prayer, every extra scoop of ash tossed on the hearth at night. You keep moving. You keep digging. Because if you stop, who knows what might start moving inside you? A twitch, a tap, a tremble. And then the music that isn't music takes hold, and your feet begin to move. You lie in bed that night, back aching feet, burning ears, still echoing with the phantom rhythm of feet on cobblestone. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you're not sure if your heart is beating or dancing. This is where belief begins. Not in books or scrolls or dusty theological debates between men with embroidered robes. No. For peasants like you, belief is breath. It's baked into the bread, sewn into the tunic, folded into the blankets shared on cold nights. You don't ask if the world is ruled by invisible forces. You ask which ones are angry today. It starts with the church. Always the church. From the first cough to the final breath, the church shapes your every moment. You were baptized in cold water, screamed over by a priest with trembling hands. You were confirmed, confessed, and corrected, told to kneel, pray, believe. And you do. You must. Because not believing isn't a private decision, it's a public crime. Your local priest isn't just a man in robes. He's your interpreter for reality, your translator for misery. He tells you why your crops failed sin, why your child died sin, why the neighbor's cow exploded, probably sin. He speaks in Latin. You don't understand the words, but you understand the tone, fearful reverence, half-whispers, and divine warnings carved into every homily. And then there are the saints, so many saints, each with a name you can't quite spell. Saint Apollonia for teeth, Saint Blaise for throats, Saint Vitus for dancing. You didn't even know that last one until a few days ago. But now his name is on everyone's lips, quietly, cautiously. Like maybe if you say it too loud, he'll come calling. They say what's happening is a punishment, or a test, or a plague, or a blessing in disguise. They don't know, so they pray. You've watched your neighbor carve a cross into the lintel of his door with a rusty nail, muttering a prayer with every stroke. You've seen a woman hang garlic and dried flowers over her baby's cradle, not because she thinks it'll help, but because not doing it would feel like inviting disaster in for tea. The town's relics, bits of bones, old cloth, glass, vials of something holy, are paraded through the streets, held high like shields. The priest chants, people cry, and still, the dancing continues. You don't understand it. No one does. So you look elsewhere. Folk magic, superstition, the whispered remedies of the old widow who lives at the edge of town and smells like burnt thyme. She gives you a bundle of herbs wrapped in a bit of red cloth and says, "Bury this beneath your threshold. It will keep the movement out." You don't ask questions, you do it. Because belief isn't about logic. It's about fear and control, and the desperate hope that something will listen if you plead the right way. The stories grow. They say the dancers are possessed, cursed, that a group of women once danced so long their feet turned to ash, that a man once skipped across 5 parishes before collapsing into a shrine. That laughter can become screaming. That joy can turn into madness with just one wrong prayer. And in the corner of the inn, someone mutters that it's the devil, that he's here. Walking behind the dancers, unseen, smiling. You drink your ale faster after that. The church tries to help. The bishop orders prayers, masses, even music. Yes, music. They bring fiddlers and drummers to accompany the dancers, thinking maybe if they control the beat, they can control the movement. It doesn't work. It only makes it louder. But you understand the impulse. If you can't stop it, maybe you can shape it. If you can't exercise it, maybe you can endure it. You think of sin, your own, the time you stole an egg, lied about the grain, skipped mass to sleep an extra hour. You list them silently at night like an accounting of guilt. You wonder which one was the final straw. You wonder if this is your punishment. If one day you'll wake up and your feet will move before your thoughts do. And still in the dark, in the cold, in the smoke-stained silence of your hovel, you believe. In saints, in sinners, in spirits, in something. Because something is happening, and it's bigger than you, and it's coming. You feel it in your legs. The sun sets slowly in Strasbourg, not with a dramatic flourish, just a steady fading of light into shadow. The kind of twilight that makes every face look older, every road look longer, every footstep sound like an ending. Your hands are raw, your back is screaming. You've earned the privilege of dinner. That sounds more exciting than it is. Dinner isn't a meal, it's a necessity. You sit near the hearth, knees pulled to your chest, cradling a bowl of something warm gray and vaguely gelatinous. The stew, if you can call it that, is made from barley cabbage and bits of yesterday. The flavor is smoke salt and the faintest whisper of meat, maybe. There are no plates, no silverware. Just one wooden bowl per person, a shared spoon if you're lucky, and fingers if you're not. Everyone eats fast. Not because it's good, but because it's scarce. The stew stretches as far as it can, more water, more root vegetables, less complaint. You chew with purpose. Swallow hard. Let it sit in your belly like a stone, warming you from the inside out. Someone coughs beside you. Someone else mutters a prayer. You're too tired for conversation. Drinks ale again. Weak, bitter, slightly cloudy. Served in a cup you share with your cousin and a neighbor whose name you still don't know. You sip and it bites the back of your throat in a way that reminds you you're alive. Barely. But tonight there's a flicker of change. A strange energy moves through the village. The dancers. They haven't stopped. Not entirely. You saw them again today. Flailing behind the bakery. A group of 3 now. One woman collapsed, dragged away by her family, her feet blackened and cracked open like firewood. Yet here you are trying to relax. So you go where people always go when they need to forget the tavern. If you're lucky enough to have coin or a sympathetic brewer, you find yourself huddled among bodies in a smoky room where the fire is too small and the ale is too strong. It's loud, hot, cramped. The air smells like sweat, spilled beer, and defeat. But it's alive. This is entertainment, not concerts or plays or theater. This is a jug of ale passed around. A story told too loudly, a joke repeated until it dies. A lute strums in the corner badly. Someone sings a song about a pig. Someone else tries to dance and gets heckled for it. And every laugh feels like defiance. You drink. You drink because your hands hurt, because your heart is heavy, because you saw someone dance themselves bloody yesterday. Because you don't know what else to do. Sometimes there's music. A fiddler. A drum. An old woman with a harp missing 2 strings, and for a few minutes you forget. You sway. You stomp your feet. You laugh. And for just a moment the movement doesn't feel cursed. Then someone jokes, "Careful, or you'll catch it too." The music stops. The air tightens. No one laughs. Someone mutters a prayer and throws salt over their shoulder. The moment passes. Markets are another escape. Not fun exactly, but at least distracting. a place to barter, to gossip, to pretend things are normal. You trade onions for fish, a pelt for a pot, a chicken for a miracle cure someone swears will keep your feet from twitching at night. There's a juggler sometimes, a fire eater rarely, but mostly it's just noise and mud and too many elbows. And somewhere in that crowd, someone always whispers, "Did you hear?" Another one started dancing. At dawn, near the cathedral. Entertainment. You take what you can get. Festivals used to be a joy. Before all this, days when the whole village would gather for the feast of St. John, or St. Mary, or Saint anybody that might grant a blessing. Bonfires, bread, dancing that felt safe. Now no one organizes those. No one wants to be responsible for starting a rhythm that can't be stopped. And still you crave connection. So you sit, around a table, around a fire, around a shared anxiety. You talk, you sing, you drink. Because even fear needs a break. Even dread needs a chaser. The stew might be bland. The beer might be warm. The jokes might be stale. But they're yours. And for a little while they keep the horror at bay. Until you hear it again. Not laughter. Not clapping. But the soft, steady beat of feet dancing in the dark. The next morning you wake up coughing. Not a polite little throat clearing, but a deep rattling bark that leaves a metallic taste in your mouth and a sharp twinge in your ribs. The fire went out hours ago. The room is cold, damp, and every breath feels like inhaling a damp wool blanket. You hear others coughing, too. That's normal. That's life. Because in the Middle Ages, illness isn't an event. It's the background noise of existence. You're never truly healthy. You're just not dying yet. You wrap a cloth around your neck, damp, stained, barely warm, and step outside. You spot the old man who lives across the lane. He's sitting on a stool, rocking slowly, eyes vacant. You know what that means. He danced yesterday. Now he sits. His legs are twitching slightly, like they remember the movement, even though the man himself doesn't. No one goes near him. Illness here isn't just physical. It's spiritual. It's social. It marks you. Infects not just your body, but your reputation, your household, your family. And doctors, you've never seen one. You've heard of them, men. With strange tools, long robes, and theories involving bile, the moon, and maybe demons. But they don't come to you. They serve the rich, the powerful. Not you. Your medicine comes from the herb woman. She walks with a limp, wears a bundle of pouches around her waist, and smells like vinegar and damp moss. Her cure's questionable, but better than nothing. She gives you a drink, something bitter, steeped in wormwood and crushed bark. You sip it and gag. She says it'll ease the lungs. You hope she's right. You don't ask what's in it. That way, if you die, it's a surprise. If things get worse, you go to the priest. Not for healing, but for last rites. Because death is always here, waiting, watching, patient. A fever takes your neighbor's daughter. A bad cut festers on a boy's arm until he loses the whole limb. A strange rash appears, spreads, and suddenly half the family is gone. You've seen it all. You've stepped over it, dug graves for it. You know the sound of death when it walks down your street. You recognize the silence it leaves behind. And no one escapes. Not the old, not the young, not the kind, not the cruel. In this world, death is the most democratic thing that exists. You've heard the theories. Too much bad air, too much sin, a misalignment of the stars, a punishment, a warning. Some say dancing is the illness. Others say it's the cure, that your body dances the demons out, that Saint Vitus himself is testing the faithful, that those who move are blessed or cursed, and medicine. It's barely better than superstition. They bleed you for headaches, burn you for fevers, apply leeches for melancholy. They balance your humors while you quietly fade away. If they can't name it, they call it God's will. Your friend's brother died last week. Started with a sore toe, ended with convulsions, fever, and finally a quiet exhale that never reversed. You helped dig the hole. No coffin, just cloth and dirt and prayer. Sometimes the corpse twitches. They say that's normal. Sometimes you think about your own funeral. Who would come? Who would speak? What they'd say? Probably not much. He worked hard. He didn't dance. That would be enough. You go back inside. Warm your hands over the fire. Feel the ache in your joints. Wonder if it's the cold or something else. You tell yourself it's nothing, but your hands are shaking, just slightly. And outside, the wind carries the sound of someone humming a tune no one remembers teaching them. There is no such thing as a quiet household in your world. Privacy is a dream, boundaries are imaginary, and silence, well, silence usually means someone has died. Family life in 1518 doesn't revolve around affection. It revolves around survival. You live in a single room with your family, maybe 5, maybe 9 people if cousins or in-laws are crashing, which they often are. Everyone sleeps in shifts. If you get your own blanket, that's a luxury. If your child doesn't wet it, that's a miracle. Women hold the center of this storm. Not because they're celebrated or empowered, but because they have to be. They work, constantly. There is no rest for a medieval woman, not when the bread needs baking, the laundry needs boiling, the cow needs milking, the baby needs feeding, the toddler needs catching, and the fire is dying again. She wakes before the sun, lights the hearth, checks the flour, sweeps the same dirt floor that will be muddy again by noon. She braids her hair because loose hair is considered wild, unclean, or worse, witchy. Then she starts the day's work. She doesn't sit. She doesn't pause. She doesn't get thanked. And childbirth don't even start. It's not a celebration. It's a gamble. The odds are bleak. The room is dark, hot, and full of whispered prayers and shouted curses. There's no doctor, just a midwife with herbs and hands stained from a dozen previous deliveries. No pain relief, no sterile gloves, no soft music or ice chips. Just blood, heat, and hope. If she survives, she gets an hour maybe to rest before going back to work. And if the child survives, which many don't, the real test begins. Because childhood in the Middle Ages isn't sweet. It's short. Kids don't get to be kids. They're workers in training. Little adults in smaller tunics. At 5, they're feeding chickens. At 6, hauling water. By 7, they're learning their trade or copying their parents' job, whatever it may be. They don't go to school, not unless they're boys born rich. They learn from watching, from getting smacked when they mess up, from surviving long enough to understand what not to do. Toys. Maybe a carved figure, a rag doll, a stick. Laughter, sure, it exists, but it's rare. Play is squeezed into the cracks between chores and more chores. And yet there's love. Crude, exhausted, dirty love. A mother kisses her baby's forehead before wrapping him in rags and setting him in a cradle carved from an old beer barrel. A father pats his son's shoulder after a long day in the fields, and that's the most affection he's shown in weeks. Sisters hold hands when the priest walks by, scared he'll see something sinful in their posture. You take care of each other, because there is no one else. And family is more than blood. It's the neighbor who brings soup when you're sick, the aunt who teaches you how to patch a tunic without bleeding onto it, the old widow who doesn't speak much but presses herbs into your hand just in case. Even in the dance, you see it. Wives running after their husbands as they spin down the alley. Mothers weeping, holding dancing children by the shoulders, begging them to stop. A brother collapsing from exhaustion, and his sister placing her body over his like a human shield. The family doesn't leave you even when your mind does. Even when the rhythm takes you. Even when your feet betray you. They stay because what else is there? The world outside your walls is cruel, cold, cursed. But inside there's something worth fighting for, even if all you can do is hold someone's hand and whisper, "Stop dancing. Please stop dancing." By the time the sun crests high and begins its slow tilt toward the western fields, you're already half spent. Afternoons in your world aren't restful. They're not quiet hours for reflection or digestion. They are a continuation, an escalation. The midpoint in a day that feels like it might never end. If the morning was about labor, the afternoon is about friction. The first thing you notice is the shouting. The blacksmith is arguing with the baker again. Something about a broken hinge or an unpaid tab or the fact that someone's son has joined the dancers and it must be someone's fault. Always is. Voices rise. Accusations fly. And for a moment you think there might be a fight. Then the Reeve shows up. The Reeve isn't a noble, but he might as well be. He's the landowner's representative, the tax collector, the enforcer, a man with a ledger in one hand and a cudgel in the other. He doesn't ask. He tells what you owe, what's expected, who didn't meet their quota, who's been seen associating with suspicious characters, who's been heard muttering about the church. He walks like he owns the dirt you stand on, because he kind of does. You try not to look at him. Eye contact is dangerous. It invites questions. And you don't want to be noticed today. Not when your own grain stores are running low. Not when you suspect your cousin might be hiding a second goat. Punishments aren't elaborate. They're efficient. A fine. A whipping. A night in the stocks. Public shame, quick, brutal, and humiliating. The villagers gather not because they want to, but because not showing up gets noticed. You stand there with them watching a man tied to a post, lashes cutting through his tunic as he screams. No one cheers. No one looks away. This is normal. This is order. You remember when a woman was accused of causing the dancing. She had herbs in her home, a strange look in her eyes. She didn't bow low enough when the priest passed by. That was enough. She was dragged into the square, her belongings burned, her hair cut short with a dull blade, her body stripped and displayed for cleansing. They said she had let evil in through her doorway. No one knows what happened to her after. You saw her dance once, alone, at dusk. Then she was gone. Conflict isn't just official, it's personal. That boy who stole a fish from the cart last week. He's limping now. Not from the dance, but from the baker's son who caught him and made sure he wouldn't steal again. The girl whose mother dances by the cathedral now. She hasn't been allowed in the market. People say the madness is contagious, that her presence invites it. So she begs at the edge of the square. Head down, eyes hollow. And you keep your head down, because in this world safety doesn't come from justice. It comes from invisibility. The church preaches unity, peace, submission. But even the church has enemies. A man accused of heresy was dragged from his home last season. Said he heard music in the silence. Said the dance wasn't a curse, it was a calling. Said the saints wanted us to move. The priest said he was possessed. The villagers said nothing. Now there's a black scorch mark where his home used to be. Afternoons are full of tension. The fields, the court, the streets. You never know when someone might snap. The stress builds like heat in a sealed pot. And still the dancing continues. A girl near the well. A man outside the alehouse. A child barely walking, spinning in place while his mother sobs into her apron. You watch from the corner of your eye. You don't speak. You work. You wait. And you wonder how much longer the afternoon can hold together before it breaks. The sun dips below the hills slowly, reluctantly, like even it doesn't want to be part of what happens next. Night in 1518 is not peaceful. It is not gentle. It is a curtain drawn over chaos. The first thing that changes is the air. It turns colder, yes, but also heavier, full of fog smoke and the kind of silence that vibrates with tension. The streets empty quickly. People retreat indoors, doors barred with heavy planks, candles lit behind shutters that let in more fear than light. Because once the sun is gone, the shadows take over, and the shadows have teeth. You check your own door twice, slide the bolt, press your ear against the wood. You can hear footsteps still, someone hurrying, someone singing, someone dancing. You blow out the candle, and you wait. There is no electricity, no hum of a refrigerator, no distant traffic or television glow, just the snap of the hearth, the breath of the people beside you, and the occasional cough that reminds you how fragile everyone really is. Sleep is not guaranteed. The floors are hard. The air is cold. The sounds from outside keep you half awake all night. A dog howls. A baby cries. And somewhere not far enough, someone laughs, and it doesn't sound right. Not joyful. Not human. Just wrong. You pull your blanket tighter. The fire has gone out. The wind scratches against the roof like claws, and your thoughts begin to wander. You think about the man who danced in the square until his feet bled and his shins cracked like dry wood. You think about the woman who twirled until her body gave out, her eyes wide, her limbs still twitching even after her last breath. You think about what it must feel like not to want to dance but to need to have your body betray you, to move without meaning, to be puppeted by panic. You wonder if it's a sickness, or a message, or a punishment. Your neighbor says it's bad bread-tainted rye that rots the brain and calls to the muscles. The priest says it's sin. The herbalist says it's the spirit of Saint Vitus calling the wicked to judgment. You say nothing. You lie there blinking in the dark, counting your breaths, waiting for sleep to come before something else does. Because night is when the worst things happen. Fires break out. Homes collapse. Wolves come close. Thieves move like smoke between shadows. And fear becomes a companion curled up beside you, like a stray dog you didn't ask for. You once knew a man who died in his sleep, just stopped breathing. They say it was peaceful, but you wonder if his dreams weren't full of drums and music and motion, if maybe he was dancing inside until the rhythm stole his breath. The worst fear that you'll wake up dancing, or worse, never wake up at all. Outside, the wind howls again. You close your eyes and whisper a prayer. Not because you believe it will help, but because doing nothing feels like an invitation. The sky turns pale gray by morning, like a bruise beginning to fade. You open your eyes, slowly, carefully. Your feet are still. You breathe out, relieved, for now. But as you sit up in your cold, damp room, you hear it again, the rhythm. Not music, just movement. Slap, slap, twist. Slap, slap, fall. Another dancer, another neighbor, another friend. The dancing plague didn't come all at once. It came like water creeping under a door, quiet, persistent, unstoppable. In Strasbourg, they danced for days, weeks. Some danced until their feet broke. Some until their hearts gave out. Others until the priest gave up praying. And you, like everyone else, watched, waited, feared. Because it could have been you. There was no cure, no saint strong enough, no physician wise enough, no explanation that satisfied. It just happened. And then one day it stopped. Not all at once, not dramatically, just slowly. The rhythm faded. The dancers dropped. Some recovered. Some didn't. And the city moved on. It had to, because grain still needed grinding, wood still needed chopping, rent still needed paying, and death. Death had other appointments. That's the real legacy of this era. Not just the dirt, the cold, the suffering, but the endurance. You lived every day on the edge of pain, fear, and hunger. And still you woke up. Still you moved. Still you danced, if not with joy, then with stubborn defiance. Because in a world without comfort, survival is rebellion. So as you lie back down, wrapped in scratchy wool with the sound of early footsteps stirring outside, you feel something strange. Gratitude. Not for the time you've just lived through, but for the time you don't live in. You have shoes that don't leak. You have medicine that works. You have food that won't kill you. And you have rest, a quiet, safe, uninterrupted night waiting for you. So tonight as you drift off, remember you don't have to wake up in 1518. You don't have to dance to death. Sleep well.